Ring around the rosy, a pocket full of posies.
A lot of people have very disturbing nightmares all the time, so I wanted to tell you guys about 5 nightmares I still remember pretty vividly. They go from kind of weird and maybe even comical to extremely sinister, and the number 1 nightmare I had left me bawling my eyes out in tears. That one is going to be the hardest for me to talk about. Part of the reason I talk about this, though, is because I know some people have sleep paralysis, and it's a very terrifying thing to experience. So I want these people to know that they're not alone in the terror they endure while they are asleep. Number 5, the Crypt Keeper. So this dream actually happened when I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, and I still remember it. It started off with me being upstairs in my bedroom at my old house in upstate New York. This house had a pretty creepy background, and a lot of people felt like they were not alone when they were in this house. I was just upstairs playing in my room, and in the dream I felt like there was something evil in the house. I went downstairs and saw my grandfather sitting on the couch watching TV. That made me feel a little bit more at ease. Down the hallway, near the kitchen, there was a playroom. It was dark in there, and for some reason I went in there without turning the lights off. I saw my toy horse in the middle of the room rocking by itself, and I still decided to sit in the room for some reason. I felt like I was not alone, though. As I turned to walk out of the room, something jumped on my back. I couldn't shake it off, nor could I see what it was. When it finally let go, I ran into the living room with my grandfather, but when I tried to speak to him, he didn't say anything. He kept watching TV as if I wasn't there. Then this thing jumped on my back again, except this time it got in my face. The only way I could describe it was it looked like the Crypt Keeper from the TV show Tales from the Crypt. Now, I know this will sound funny to some of you, but at the time and in the dream it was actually terrifying, and I did not like seeing this damn thing in my face. Number 4, Against the Wall. Now, what made this nightmare so terrifying is it lasted much longer than I would have liked for it to, and it took place in my old room at my current house. Now, this was right after I had the encounter with the demon Misty. I fell asleep and immediately was in my bedroom in the dream. I remember it being very hot, the lights were on, and the door was closed. I was watching TV when things started to get very odd. Things were sliding off the end table. Gradually through the dream, the activity started to pick up. I tried to get out of the room, but my door wouldn't open when I ran to it. Things were being thrown across the room. Then I was lifted off my feet and pinned up against the wall. I remember it being forever before I could actually wake up. I tried to scream, but nothing would come out, as in most of my dreams, as if my mouth was being forced shut. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I was able to wake myself up, but for a few seconds I was still unable to move. This was one of the few times I've ever experienced sleep paralysis, and it's not a fun thing to go through. Number 3, Dead. Now, I'm going to keep this one sort of short. This one really isn't all that paranormal, but it was actually one of the more frightening ones I've had. I remember being in the middle of a restaurant. I was bartending and I was on my break. I had sat at the bar and got some food. After finishing my shift, the place was still super busy, so I decided to have a few drinks with some of my friends that were there. All of a sudden, we saw someone down the bar drop dead randomly. Then more people started dropping. People all around the restaurant just started dying as if it were caused by some sort of gas in the air. Eventually, everyone had dropped and died, and then it was my turn. I fell to the ground and everything went black, but my conscience was still there. I couldn't move my body, I couldn't wake up. It was as if I was going to be stuck in my head forever, surrounded by darkness. In the dream, it seemed like it had been an hour, and it was like I actually knew that I was dead but couldn't actually do anything about it. This was the only dream I've ever had where I actually died in the dream and kept dreaming as I was still lying there dead. Number 2, The Demon in the Doorway. So this one was actually one of my more recent nightmares that I had. It came right after watching the movie The Conjuring 2. Yes, I should have known that I'd have a nightmare after watching this, but this one seemed very, very real. I was in the room that I'm currently in right now, recording this. The dream started out somewhat normal, though. I was playing video games with some people when the room started to expand. I really can't explain this, but it's like the room sort of grew a little bit. I even had a couch in here and some other furniture. Then the weird things started to happen. My door slammed shut and the room got red. There was like a darkness that shrouded the entire room, so much so that you could even feel the evil that was inside of it. Then the door swung open. There was a really large demon trying to walk through the doorway. He was even bigger than the doorway itself. He looked like a mixture of the demon seen at the end of The Conjuring 2 and a mixture of Diablo from Diablo 3, except he was all black. He had glowing red eyes and horns on his head. It didn't resemble anything human, even slightly. I ran to the door to try and keep it shut as the demon was pushing on it to try and get in. I ordered my daughter and her mother to stay in the corner. It finally broke through the door and I woke up. Number 1. The taking of my daughter. Now, this dream is very hard for me to talk about. This is by far the scariest dream I've ever had, and that's because it involved my daughter being the main focus, and at the time she was only a few months old. As a parent, something happening to your child is the most frightening thing you can ever think of, and with it being something paranormal, it's even worse. So it was Halloween in the dream. The neighborhood was overly decorated in Halloween decorations, as if it was almost in a super mall. We took Bella trick-or-treating in her stroller. When we got home, we noticed that there was something weird about the way she was acting. A few days went by, and it got much worse. Weird things would happen around the house, and eventually she was pale and almost looked like a zombie. Eventually it got so bad that she could walk and talk with an evil voice, and she was only 6 months old at the time. We called a priest to try and get rid of the demon, but it didn't seem to work. While he was quoting Bible verses, she got up and vanished. We looked everywhere and eventually went looking around the neighborhood. As we passed the pond, I happened to see her, underwater. I jumped in to try and get her, but she wasn't there. There was nothing there at all. After 3 days, we never found her. I remember looking up at her mother and crying, saying, "She's really just gone." Then I finally woke up. I woke up crying harder than I can ever remember crying. I just held Bella for a long time as she slept. This was by far the worst dream I've ever had in my life, and I hope I never have to go through anything like it again. It was awful. So there you go, guys. That's 5 of my most terrifying dreams that I've ever had that I can actually remember. Recently I had another sleep paralysis dream where I remembered screaming and trying to wake myself up, and finally did because I knew that I was dreaming, but I don't actually remember what happened in the dream. I have a lot of these demonic dreams, unfortunately, and that's possibly what causes my insomnia. Subconsciously, I think I don't want to go to sleep because of it. After recording some of this, I actually had to take a break because I started to feel really odd, and my room went completely silent for a few minutes, and that just doesn't ever happen here. Either way, if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.